After 6 races tonight brings us to our finale for Series 14. For some, it will be do or die. For others, they can throw caution to the wind. Who will thrive as we get ready for the PCA Sim Racing Series 14 Sport Class? And you'll see it all live here on RaceSpot TV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Ewan O'Leary. Behind the scenes is our director, Ramiro Cisneros. We're thrilled to have Princess Cruises as the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. All right, Ewan, it comes down to this. After 6 events, now it decides it all.
Absolutely. I would say that this class has been the best so far this season out of all of them, going through this schedule right the way from the start of September at Spa, where it was absolute domination from Will Wolf. I have to say, at that point in the season, I feared for how close it might be, but we've turned out to have a wonderful season.
And this one's going to be perhaps one of the most straightforward championship fights that we've seen. They come in tied, simple as who finishes in front of the other. They only need to be concerned about each other. Now, obviously, normally drop weeks would come into play, but they do not count for this last race. That helps simplify things tremendously. There are still some battles happening. For third place, essentially, you've got McDonald's, Maine, and Binkley all still within range of one another, so that could definitely change around in the fight for 6th as well, as Callback and Hammond are also very close. But right now, we do have Josh Jeppesen currently on the provisional pole. Now, Will Wolf jumped in a little bit late, so we don't know what kind of practice he has had, Ewan. And from what I'm seeing, he's had enough, but he's still sitting third.
Yeah, as you say, we don't know how much. To be fair, he might have been practicing in his own server prior to this race. Maybe he's got home late and he's only just jumped on in time for the start of qualifying and he's a bit undercooked. But we just don't know, as you say. Maybe on the evidence of what we're seeing so far, not terribly far away. 3/10 to a second around here through a lot of corners, more than 17, is pretty impressive, if indeed he is coming in cold. But and he just bumped down to 4th place. The real thing is his position here, really, not how far behind he is. I think he's got to be on the inside of that second row, really, because it's pretty difficult to get through the field here. You want to reduce the amount of overtakes you make by as much as you can in this qualifying session.
Yeah, last week we saw that it proved to be just a bit difficult to try and overtake. So track position could wind up being a critical factor throughout the race. Of course, they do have a pit stop as they have limited the fuel of these cars. So if you do find yourself stuck out of position, you could try and get a little bit tricky through strategy, but I wouldn't really recommend it as your crutch out here, let's say, as we watch Wolf take his final lap. This one could be important. He is 2 thousandths off of 3rd position, so he only needs minor improvement just to get to the inside of that second row. But where will he wind up as he comes to the line? And let's see what the stopwatch says as he crosses that marker. 48.182. That is good enough for 3rd, so he at least will be starting behind his rival.
And by the way, there was time left in that lap, by the way. There were definitely a couple of mistakes towards the end. We saw a slide on the way out of Oak Tree where he was fighting the car just a little bit. And on the way out the final corner as well, didn't get the right run onto the front straight at all either. And that was probably the most egregious one. So, yeah, I would say he probably is a bit undercooked at the moment. That wasn't a refined lap. It wasn't the look to me of a driver who's been practicing for the last hour or two. That has got the look to me as someone who's warming up a little bit here. And that could be ominous for the rest of the field because he has still qualified in 3rd place. But ultimately, he is behind Jeppesen.
You see Peter Yerkes on screen in the number 54. His is going to be interesting because he is currently qualified last, and I don't see any other cars who can qualify from here with about 10 seconds left. That is locked in. What can he show of himself in this last race of Series 14, considering he's going to be doing it from perhaps the worst position in the entire field. As now that is sealed up, Josh Jepson starts out with a bit of an advantage as he will take the pole position. And again, tied on points, that gives him at least a little bit of an upper hand going in.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said before, you're going to want any upper hand you can possibly get around this venue in qualifying. So a very important session draws to a close at the end of that those 10 minutes or so, those 3 laps. And very soon the race will be underway. But yeah, what a remarkable scenario we're in here after Wolf won at Zolder, closing those 30 points to Jefferson and getting right even with him going into the final round in a season where both of them have had one bad race, you could say. And it all comes down to this, you'd say, probably with Wolf the favourite, having won 4 out of the 6 races so far. But he's starting with work to do tonight.
Obviously, with the uneven amount, they can't wind up tying on wins. But let's take a look at how this lap went. See if this one also left anything on the table, Ewan.
Yeah, let's have a look out of turn number 1. Nice and smooth, little bit of an oversteer there as he's just trying to squeeze on the throttle around the turn 1 hairpin. Now into turn 2 and 3, trying to make that all one smooth curve. That's gone rather nicely before coming into turn 4, the left hook. And then 5, a little bit narrow on the way in there. You need to be a little bit wider to maximise this run out of here. And that hasn't quite been maximised 100%, but if you're staying within the bounds of the track and it's an okay run, then you'll be fine with it. Up in towards the S's, flat out for the first bit here. How committed are you over the top of the hill? Look at that 6th gear. Now finally needing a little bit of slowing down. Keeps it quite tight to the right-hand side, but that's no bad thing. Opening up at South Bend, the left-hander downhill here. Doesn't let the car get away from him as he comes down the hill now into the final couple of turns before Oak Tree. That late apex, that was nicely done, and perhaps more nicely done actually than the lap we saw at the end there from Will Wolf when we were seeing him late on. Now Jefferson comes down the back straight. Past all these alternate layouts, which are all situated to the right-hand side of us here, and that infield, there they are, some of them. And then into the roller coaster at the end of the lap where you can't see the apex you're aiming for at the end until you're basically on it. There it is. Nicely done, nicely controlled. And down the hill as well, just smoothly squeezing on the power. Not even the hint of an opposite lock here. This is a little bit smoother. Bound over that first bit of a curve there, then into the final turn. Keeps it quite tight, but you do want that because you don't want to run wide into the grass there, or you'll never get out of it. And now he is on the run to the line. That was definitely a smoother lap, and you can see visually almost where the couple of tenths of a second were lost.
That made the difference. Will that gift him a championship? It's going to be a long race, so you really can't count that as being the most important part. But like we've been saying, it will start things off at least on the right foot for Josh Jepson as we get ready for the race itself here. Qualifying done, might as well go through our starting order for today's race. And on the top of that, it is Josh Jepson, who is on the pole. Casey McDonald will be starting from second, with William Wolf in third, directly behind his rival. He'll have Nick Francis to his outside. Sheldon Zaharachuk is going to be starting in fifth, with Jeremy Main in P6. From there, it's Lee Binkley starting in seventh. He'll have Kevin Haman to his outside. Randy Lervold will be starting ninth, with Kent Locklear rounding out your top 10. Stephen Danley starts in 11th, with Jeff Williams starting in P12. After that, you've got Tim Thornton starting from 13th. Jim Walsh rejoins us once again, starting from P14. After that, it's Andrew Elsom in 15th spot. Andrew Long starts in 16th today. And Mike Sachs will be 17th, with Daniel Corbett flanking him. Ankerberg Zahn is going to be in 19th. Jeff Gardner in P20. Then it's Alan Hales starting from 21st, followed by Bruce Robinson in 22nd. Marcos Souza in 23rd, and Peter Yurtsa, as we mentioned earlier, will be starting shotgun on the field down in last position. 24 cars should be plenty to keep things interesting around here, but also with it not being the biggest field, we're not sure whether or not we'll be seeing any sort of lap traffic, which could also play a factor in this, as sometimes it can be tricky trying to overtake slower cars around this circuit. As for the temperatures, pretty ideal at about 80 Fahrenheit, but we did hear from drivers on past races, Ewan, that it seemed like looking after the tires is a little bit of a factor here.
It's such a twisty circuit that you must be putting the tyres through quite a lot of wear. Some of these corners very high speed on the way out of Sector 1, for example, over the S's there through South Bend. You've also got a lot of traction zones which put really an emphasis not only on the rears generally, but on a corner, like out of Turn 1, for example, or down the hill into the final corner as well. There's some difficult traction zones there as well, which will be putting stress on the rear tyres. So yeah, I can absolutely believe that it is a little bit of a factor here, the tyre wear. And as for traffic, which you mentioned there, less of a problem, I think, than certainly than Zolder a couple of weeks ago. This is such a long circuit that it takes so long to actually get up to anybody that we'll be very close to the end by the time we get any lap traffic, if we do at all. And that's probably a good thing for those at the front.
Yeah, we would like to see a straight fight. I'd hate to see it really decided by the traffic, but obviously you never know. So they will have to be heads up. It is a factor in racing, although thankfully in recent seasons they have implemented new blue flag rules, and drivers are required to get out of the way after a certain number of corners within 1 second of the leader behind them. So if someone does hold you up, it won't be for too long. Just it could matter where you catch them as we head down the roller coaster. And Josh Jeppesen leads the way in that beautiful green, chrome and blue car just next to Case McDonald's very blank looking and generic machine with his sort of amusing quotes all over it describing what exactly it is. Thankfully, nobody's going to have to worry about wondering what he's driving today, because it looks like he's fast, having put it on the front row. Pace car is in, and now we wait patiently for the green flag to start the final race of Series 14. And there it is. Green flag is out. Josh Jeppesen on the loud pedal. Good start from William Wolf. He immediately puts himself in contention as Nick Francis is slow off the line. And now he's going to go for a challenge 3 wide into the lead. Is he going to be able to come out the other side? Yes, thankfully they are going to be safe. In fact, I think he's going to get second over McDonald.
Well, if Wolf meant to do that, that's the most extraordinary bit of driving we've seen all season. He didn't, in the end, attempt a 3-wide move, but what he did do is put the driver on the outside off completely, which allowed him to slip up into second. If he meant that, that's extraordinary. But either way, he's into second. He's already putting Jeppesen under pressure because he went wide into left hook, and he's already looking like he's under a lot of pressure through Sector 1.
He has got that horse by the reins right now. So William Wolf not allowing his maybe slight lack in qualifying to hinder him too much. And we'll take a look at that start. I think this caught us both by surprise. We were both quite shocked to see that car sneak in there. And great job by everybody to keep that from becoming an accident. Almost looked like from that angle that Wolf decided this is a bad idea and was trying to back out late.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe that was the other thing as well. Maybe it wasn't all planned and he was going to go for it until he realised what a bad idea that might be. And so backs away and probably did well to do that as well. But Casey McDonald slipped back into third. Then Jeremy Main, who's not exactly gone away either. Nick Francis, who's down to fifth off the start here as well. That's how the points would look. As you mentioned earlier, it's a winner-takes-all situation. And or indeed, whoever finishes ahead of the other. And Jeppesen at the moment has that out the end of lap number 1.
Wolf still hanging behind him. Needs to be a little bit closer, but this could offer a slipstream coming down the main straight towards the horseshoe. We saw last time out that this is definitely a place where you can get those passes done. One of the heaviest braking zones there into turn 1. And he's starting to reel him in a little bit. He's going to poke his nose to the inside. Last time he backed out of it. This time he doesn't even get side by side.
Not quite on this occasion. Jeppesen runs round the outside and gets back into the lead, but he's looking like someone who's under a lot of pressure at the moment, and this is never a good sign early on in a race. What you want to do when you're the leader in this scenario is, yes, obviously acknowledge that there is somebody behind you and don't turn in on them if they're going to make a lunge, but you can't look like you're wanting to defend and looking nervous at the front of the field. And at the moment, Jeppesen does look like he's looking in the mirrors maybe once or twice too often, and that is making him look a bit nervous at the front. This is Mike Sachs going for a wild rider through the S's on lap 1.
Does he actually hit the wall? Just taps it. I think he'll be able to get away with that, but he's running in last because of it.
Wolf there. Wolf went for a dive at South Bend. That would have been an extraordinary move as well, but he doesn't go for it here. He doesn't get there. We've been told, by the way, that before this race he was downloading the iRacing update right until the minute that qualifying started, so he only just got in time, and so Wolf is or was indeed a little bit undercooked in qualifying. Now he's starting to get into his stride, I feel, early on in this race.
He's not shy, that's for sure. A move up towards the braking of South Bend is ambitious, and he's taken a little bit of a look towards roller coaster, but he gets chopped off by Jeppesen. We also have a penalty for Jim Walsh, as didn't quite see what that one was for, though, unfortunately. This, though, was Andrew Elsom going off, I think, all on his own down into the horseshoe. Thankfully doesn't hit anything, but went sailing off into the grass.
And you can go a very, very long way off there as well. That's why I was kind of impressed that Mike Sachs managed to find the wall through the S's, because it's such a long way away. Look at that. Wolf going to the other side, but does he go off? He's going to have... Oh, he's off. He's going to have trouble getting that back on as well. He's going to drop to 5th place.
It has been a frantic start for the 16, and now he is paying for it. Not only does he have to pass Jeppesen, but he is sitting behind Francis Main and McDonald with a gap to even catch up to them of about a second at this stage. This moves Casey McDonald up into P2. Let's take another look at it. He did have a good run. He was coming in on the outside, and he switched late.
Very late, and he was unsighted probably for his braking markers as he was concentrating on doing that and not hitting Jeppesen, and he goes off. Wow, that is a big, big moment for this race. Huge moment. And Jeppesen still under a lot of pressure, but now he's got to get his head down and try and distance Wolf as much as possible here, because Wolf is quick, and it doesn't matter if they only battle for 4th place. If it's the two of them fighting, that's the title fight right there. So Jeppesen's got to get his head down and try and get away from Wolf as best he can here.
Yeah, first, though, he's got to get up to him as McDonald starts to encroach upon Jeppesen. So right now, Casey could be one of Wolf's best friends if he starts to fight him for the lead. Jim Walsh, let's see what caused this. Whoa, he slipped across the track. Now, he didn't hit anybody, but I saw him visiting pit lane. I'm not sure. That may have been what caused the black flag if he had an unsafe entry or speeding down into there, but some strange circumstances with the Canadian.
Yeah, a little bit strange. A couple of incidents just started to happen at the back end of the field here, as expected. It is such an unusual circuit. Jim Walsh, by the way, over a minute and a half off these guys, so maybe my talk of there not being traffic too much before the end of the race will maybe go unproven, because that's quite a big gap to have so early on in this race, just 6 minutes in, as Jeremy Main continues his march up the field. There's the movers and shakers. He's got the best movement forward of anyone in the top 12, and he looks like he could take another one here ahead of Casey McDonald.
Already Will's starting to catch up to Nick Francis there in the background, so he might have himself back into P4 here shortly as we watch the 555 of Jeremy Main stay close to McDonald. There's Francis now, the multicolored number 55. Just kind of seeing the number 16 getting ever closer in the mirrors. Not quite close enough, though, I think, at this stage to try and make an attack. Although, if there's a mistake out of Nick, he could easily hand an opportunity to the 16.
Yeah, he's at that distance now where he can strike if there are mistakes, but so far Nick Francis has been pretty good on that front and hasn't made any. Still running in 4th place here and becoming further and further distant from the top 3, who still contains Joshua Jeppesen. He's not got away at the front of the field, and that's maybe ominous signs for him, because there's plenty of time left for Will Wolf in this race. And you get the feeling that he's got the pace to live with Jeppesen here, so this is far from over. I think had that happened in the pro class last week, maybe even the club class last week, had a similar situation arisen, I think it would have been game over, but not here with Wolf's pace.
Does seem to be doing pretty good, despite the lack of practice time, at least for today. As Josh Jeppesen continues to lead McDonald and Main. They've been getting close to him at times, although for now it seems to be more of a battle for P2. With McDonald's maybe going slightly defensive coming up into NASCAR Bend. Jeremy Main obviously making him think a bit.
Just a little bit. And this is alleviating the pressure on Jefferson, who's now over 3 seconds in front of Wolf, and this is starting to turn the tide a little bit, although he makes a mistake through there. And Casey McDonald to get right back into him again, but Jeremy Main is putting a lot of pressure on McDonald, and I think maybe even has the best pace of anyone inside the top 3 or 4 at the moment, with the possible exception of Wolf, who's in 5th. Main could well be the quickest driver in this field, but again, it's about making overtakes from now, which is not so easy.
Yeah, Wolf was 0.3 of a second faster than Jeppesen that last lap. So, yeah, he's making a good time considering the loss that he had a little bit earlier. I think there may have been a connection issue for Lee Binkley because he's gone blank on my screen and he's dropping down the order, hoping that car is able to rejoin at some point. But this is getting a little dangerously close now as Casey McDonald reels him in to within about 1/4 of a second. We got another incident, black flag for Ankerberg Zone. Yeah, that was a disappearance there from Lee Binkley. And Ankerberg Zone, though, I'm not seeing that being reported in the sim by the steward. So I'm not sure if maybe that's just slipped by us or if there was something else that happened.
Will remain a mystery for the moment. As also remaining a mystery, was it Kevin Hamann who was just dropping down the field? No, maybe not. Andrew Elsom involved here. In this replay, way too late on the brake through the roller coaster and nearly slides into the wall. And that downhill run that invites you towards the time barriers down there, but got away with it on that occasion. And somebody was definitely dropping down the field there on the racetrack as well. I'm not sure who it was though. Elson being one separate one to the one that I saw. As we go back to Jeremy Main here, who's still in 3rd, still applying that pressure as well as they get further and further away from Nick Francis and Will Wolf.
Definitely impressed with Jeremy, the way he's been running this race. Like we said, putting a lot of pressure here on the 764. Just about even on time. I mean, they were mere hundredths apart on their lap time, but he seems to be having trouble actually making the pass. And like I said earlier, that seemed to be a bit of a theme in the Pro Class season finale. So can he get tricky? What does he learn from the slightly faster class? And can he use that to his advantage as he starts to reel him back in down Madison Avenue?
Let's see what happens when they get to the end. Oh,
sorry. In the background, we could see Wolf and Francis just about make contact down the straightaway, but Wolf has gotten by. That was a strange incident. I'm not sure if maybe Nick just didn't realize the car was there or not.
Yeah, we'll try and see again, but especially from Wolf's perspective, there doesn't seem to be any reason to be running that close to one another on the straight, on any straight, to be honest. And let's see how it happens. So out of Oak Tree, Wolf is obviously going to get a better run here, much better run, in fact. And so it's almost surprisingly alongside already. Maybe Francis doesn't, well, I can't really work out who's at fault there. Neither of them were to the side of their side of the road. So maybe both of them can be blamed a little bit. But if I was Wolf there, I wouldn't be getting anywhere near the driver I was alongside, to be honest. Not saying it's his fault per se, because he had a lot less space on his side of the road than Francis did. But if I was a championship contender trying to get past someone who I just need to get past to get back to the bigger objectives of the day, I'd be going nowhere near Nick Francis in that scenario.
I think there may have been an incident. Yeah, I think Kevin Hamann may have been involved in it. I think he's dropped down the order. Let's see what happened to the Rexy car. And, he gets chopped off. Well, couldn't see who that was. Someone spins in sympathy, and eventually they'll all get it going.
From that angle, it might look like he had his nose chopped off. I think Hamann broke too late there and careered into the side of the driver in front. Maybe it's maybe we'll see from another angle. I think he's a long way back, is Hamann, and I don't think he's going to make that corner, really. Well, maybe he is. Hard to tell, hard to imagine, but Locklear certainly. Let's see this here. Is his trajectory one that is going to send him around the corner? I'm not sure it is. And so we'll see what the stewards decide to do, but I don't think Hamann was going to make that corner, certainly not make the apex.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you seeing that from the helicopter shot that Kent Locklear was probably expecting to have that corner. until the very last second. Meanwhile, Jeppesen ahead of McDonald's have now separated from Main. I'm not sure why, because Main was almost close to passing McDonald last time here into the horseshoe. So he may have had some sort of mistake on this most recent lap, which will be good news for William Wolf, because that will put him closer to that 555.
Yep, it will, and these are all overtakes he's got to do on the racetrack now, or at least in the race. He doesn't have to do them on the racetrack if he can work out a nice pit strategy to get him ahead, but that's a long way off at this stage. We're still in the first quarter of this race, which means there's A, a long time to go, and B, a lot of traffic behind, which means there's going to be no chance for an early stop just yet. But Jeremy Main's early pace has surprisingly, gone away very quickly here, and it's Casey McDonald who's been given a new lease of life. No pressure from behind now, and so he's applying it to Joshua Jeppesen.
Doing the best he can now that it's 1 versus 1 out there. By the way, good eye, Ewan. They did give the penalty to Kevin Haman for that incident, so they agreed with you. He is to blame for the spin both of them suffered. Meanwhile, that looked like a good exit for Jeppesen. He gets himself plenty clear of the 764 down Madison Avenue this time, so no threat as they come up to the roller coaster, at least for the time being. By the way, I checked, and that last lap, William Wolf, of those top 4, again, was the fastest of any of them.
I really think this race is going to come right down to the wire, or at least this championship is. Maybe either McDonald or Main are going to get clear and win the race, but as far as the championship is concerned, this is not over at all. It's a perfect scenario for us, really, because it's put the fastest driver behind with work to do. I think it's quite clear that Wolf is faster than maybe anybody in the field, certainly faster than Jeppesen, which is the only driver he's interested in this race. They could finish second last and last, but as long as he finishes in front of the other, then they will be champion. It's a brilliant prospect for the next 45 minutes, but Wolf is and off Main. Is he going to pull it up in time? I'm not sure. He's going to be dragged even closer now to Will Wolf,
which could help him on some of these long acceleration zones, especially coming out of the snake here. Even though it's not the longest straight, you get a lot of slipstream coming down here. He's going to want to try and pull that toe as he's now under 1 second. Oh my goodness, Casey McDonald though, look at how close he's getting to our leader. We keep seeing this time after time. He presents himself in the mirrors of the 73. We've seen maybe half of a try or two out there from him, but I haven't really seen them get side by side much yet. What's he going to do if he can find himself with an opportunity? Remember, the championship is none of his concern, and he can hang that over the head of Josh Jeppesen, because Josh has to worry about just finishing the race.
Yeah, we see this time, and this is how Main got a lot closer to Wolf there. Not sure whether he grabbed the grass and went wide there, or whether he just broke too late, but he's certainly been dragged closer by Wolf as Jeppesen does hold on. We'll see whether McDonald plays that card, but you're absolutely right that he's got the opportunity here to what are we?
It's a lapped car in front of him.
Sorry. I thought Jeppesen had suddenly teleported behind or something. That was really weird. That's a lap car indeed, a very early lap car in the first 20 minutes. Going to get out of the way, thankfully, for all the leaders.
Yeah, and that is Jim Walsh. Already Lee Binkley has been put a lap down. I think both of them having suffered some misfortune in this race is why they are being lapped already. He's doing a very good job trying to let them all through, and thankfully all of the top 4 have already overtaken him. Man, practically pushing Josh through the corner. Casey McDonald trying to cut back a little bit, and he does get a good launch, but there's no place to take it here.
It does seem either fortunate or planned that Jeppesen is slightly slow in places where there isn't really an overtaking place right after, especially for that first sector. I don't think he's quite got that down, but every time out of Oak Tree, he's pretty strong. We'll see it again here in a moment when they come down this little drop, this descent in towards the 2 right-handers, and we'll just watch his line here. Runs quite wide, doesn't grab the curb quite, but look at that late apex, and look at him go. Goodness me, 0.5 of a second, and that's a marked difference to what we saw in the first sector, where he's consistently been slower than the other 3.
1.2 seconds faster that last lap was William Wolf compared to Jeppesen. He has cut it down to where he is now only 1.2 seconds behind Josh, who is still seeing Casey McDonald as the nearest car as we ride on the nose of that 764, coming back down through the roller coaster. Still a little bit too far back at this stage. But like you've been saying and predicting, Ewan, William Wolf has not only had the pace, he could potentially get by both of these cars and suddenly place himself back where he was at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, now that he's back in this group again, my big question is, what does he do in terms of making these overtakes? He has to get past them and he has to get to Jeppesen somehow. So I guess he's got three options, really. Wait for them to get past Jeppesen and then get to Jeppesen when he gets to him. That's not a very proactive thing to do, and I don't think he will do that. Will he make a pit stop to try and jump ahead of those two and get close to Jeppesen? Maybe even try and jump all three in one go. That seems unlikely for the next few minutes, but it might be something to think about when some of that midfield have pitted and there might be a gap for him to go into. Or third, I think, is the most likely of the three options. Overtake the two in front and then try and overtake Jeppesen as well. That's going to be difficult, but that's probably his best chance at the moment as McDonald gets closer than ever up into the S's.
Heading towards the oak tree once again. Yeah, I'd highly doubt we'd see any of them pit at this stage, considering we're only a third of the way through, although we are within the fuel window if anybody really needs to. Of course, they do have that spare car, and sometimes that forces the hand of some of these drivers. Before we see them get to the pit stop, though, as we take a look at Jim Walsh, having more problems coming over the roller coaster and finding himself going backwards down into the grass. I do want to give a mention to Princess Cruises because they are the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. Back around we go, completing another lap. Josh Jeppesen still your leader, but William Wolf has managed to get by Jeremy Main. There's one down.
Yeah, one down, and I think it was an error from Jeremy Main that allowed it to happen. We'll see a replay in a moment, but it wasn't a long, drawn-out, side-by-side scrap between the two of them. Wolf will feel, I think, that he's got off pretty lightly there because he's only really got to the back of the group a couple of minutes ago. And for him to already be through on one of them is a big plus for him. And it's just about giving yourself the most amount of time to get past Jeppesen, I feel, in this race. This is a mistake. Just a snap coming out of the final corner, and he has to slow down a lot to gather it up. So Wolf says thanks very much and walks straight past. Yeah, this is about Wolf giving himself the most time possible to get past Jeppesen. At the moment, still nearly 40 minutes left, so there's plenty of time. But Jeppesen's going to defend hard, so you want to give yourself as much as possible. Look at that line again. Still, Casey McDonald unable to find his way past.
And I think William Wolf would really appreciate Casey continuing to put this pressure on Josh Jeppesen. The more he can get him to try and defend into the corners, the slower the laps are going to be, the quicker he is going to catch up to them. And in fact, he's going to go for the lead. Casey McDonald down into the roller coaster with a decisive move. I was frankly not expecting that to happen so quickly.
Well, especially since similar scenarios have been thrown up time and again in this race so far, and they haven't been taken by Casey McDonald. But now he's in front, and Jeppesen there didn't fight it too hard either, which is surprising when you know that your title rival is right there ready to swallow you up if indeed you let them through. But look at that. Jeppesen tentative into the roller coaster, and too tentative, I would argue, given his championship rival is right there.
Almost makes me wonder if he was afraid that being offline, he'd have to break a little too early and wound up making it come true. And next thing he knows, he's been overtaken for that lead spot. Whatever the case, he now has William Wolf directly behind him. What a recovery from the 16 on this one. If he does take the championship, I have to say this is a champion's drive.
It certainly is. You know, you've got to recover from things going wrong, and so far Wolf has has absolutely done that, only finishing outside the top 10 once this season. That was at Laguna Seca, which has become his drop round for this season. Hasn't finished outside of the top step of the podium since then, as Jefferson defends, and this is the problem for him now. He's taking a different line through Oak Tree, and Wolf is going to have the run on him into the back straight.
This is exactly what Wolf would have wanted. Is Jefferson going to rue that defensive move as he comes up towards the braking zone that lost him the lead just one lap ago? Will he now lose second place to his championship rival as he's going to be fully alongside him? It is almost a carbon copy as William Wolf is through and into second place.
Well, that changed very quickly. In the space of 3.5, 4 minutes, he's gone from having two cars as a buffer and sitting in the race lead, Joshua Jefferson, to behind his main rival. And that is a massive, massive change here, considering Jefferson has not got the speed of Will Wolf so far tonight. He's half a second behind already. Wolf is in second and cruising. He'll try and stay with McDonald here, who might even help lead him away from his championship rival in this race.
And this is going to get interesting because you got differing motivations here. William Wolf, no doubt, will probably want to have that buffer, be ahead of Casey McDonald's, so that it makes life even harder for Josh Jefferson. But Casey McDonald has yet to win this season. So he's looking to end this on a high note and finally get that one marked on his score sheet. Can he hold back William Wolf if Wolf starts to approach and challenges him?
Well, yeah, we've only had 3 winners altogether so far this season, because we've seen 2/3 of the races won by Will Wolf. No one else has really had a chance here, and that might be the case again here. Casey McDonald's going to have to work really, really hard for this race win, which would absolutely confirm a 3rd place finish in the championship. So far, 4 podiums, for Casey McDonald this season. Most recently, just 2 weeks ago at Zolder, where he was 3rd. We'll see if he can hold on here today. Looking pretty quick so far, I've got to say.
Yeah, just wound up being in the championship at the time that he's got so many fast drivers all around him, and has made it difficult because he certainly has looked pretty quick all season long. Like you said, with his results, it seems like it's there. And coming down the hill, it's got a little bit of pressure starting to form as it's down to about half a second. Let's see what the lap times looks like between himself and William Wolf, and that is lap traffic that you see in front of them. Last lap was 0.3 of a second quicker for the number 16.
And again, Jefferson just not going away quite. I mean, it's still pretty close between those two. We'll keep an eye on it while these guys further behind also fight it out. This is Stephen Danley, I think. No, that's Harachuk going down the inside of Stephen Danley in for 7th place. Side by side out the corner, and they'll stay as they were. Andrew Long at the head of this group, but getting a bit of a... Oh, and off! That's Stephen Danley off in a battle in towards turn 3. Mentioned it was going on, and Zeldin Zaharachuk, I think, must have made contact there with 86, unless he went wide on his own and spun through turn 3.
I was able to check. There wasn't contact. That was an error from the 86 car. So no contact between them. And Steven has discovered why it is tough to try and make the corner. He was already sliding out of turn 1 and then under braking in a NASCAR bend. It was actually a relatively slow slide compared to what we typically see there, but it cost him some spots.
It definitely will. Although not a top 10 place, so he can console himself with that as Jefferson again gets pretty close to Wolf. Seems to be much better at following Wolf now that he's ahead of him than he was trying to defend for him. Where, to be honest with you, I'm not sure how many championship finales Jefferson's been involved with. I haven't really followed him up until these Porsche Club of America seasons. He, from memory, won the challenge class or got his position in the challenge class fairly sort of comfortably, and there wasn't really a championship finale to worry about, but just looked a little bit under pressure to me when he was leading, and now now that he knows his season's on the line, if he goes and overtakes the driver in front, seems to be a little bit more confident.
locked him up coming in turn one that time. It almost made it a little bit of an over-aggressive dive on it, but here comes that traffic. This is going to give him an opportunity. Wolf has caught the car. Now he has to go around the outside, though, and things are proving quite difficult. These three get separated from Casey McDonald. Here comes Jeremy Main. He's got an opportunity to be a little bit tricky, but I doubt he's going to try and go to the inside into the climbing S's, and indeed, he has to wait at least for now. But man, to give you an idea of the damage that did, it is 2.2 seconds between P1 and P2 now.
Yeah, whereas the gap was basically the same as what it is between Wolf and Jepson at the moment. That was the gap between first and second as well at the start of this lap. So I have to say that wasn't great lap car driving, to be honest, from Ankerberg's on there. Parking, I've got no problem with people not pulling over for blue flags, 5 seconds before before they're, within 5 seconds or whatever. I've got no problem with that. In fact, I like to see people carry on for as long as you can, but when you see a leading group like this, I think you've got to let all four through at once, and B, not through one of the tightest sections on this racetrack, because you'll find, as we saw there, you end up sort of parking on the apex because it just keeps going and going. It's very narrow and they can't get past you, so that wasn't too great really, and it's created some big gaps now. Jefferson's own driving is creating one in front of him as well, and he's under pressure here from Jeremy Main on the front straight.
We've seen multiple mistakes during this lap. Of course, some of it from the lap traffic, of course, but it is what it is, and has now put him in a position to where he has lost the podium, at least for a little bit. Yes, Main is by. Jefferson now under threat from losing touch with William Wolf. He needs to at least stay glued to him, and Wolf is able to run away by the tune of about 1.5 seconds because of those two fighting.
Yeah, this is starting to create some very, very big gaps now, and not in favour of Joshua Jefferson, who, to be honest, now that we're in the second half of the race, or going to be at the end of this lap, I would be instructing to come into the pit lane and try something else. I know that's not the strategy that normally prevails, but this strategy in current form is not prevailing either. So it's worth coming in, I think, for Jefferson. Just as I said, he'd sort of found his way a bit following Wolf. I think he's lost it a bit again here, and he's suddenly nearly 5 seconds off the lead.
The bad news for him is that while there is a big gap, it's about 11 seconds to the next car back, and that's not going to be enough time. He can't slot in there. There is still a lot of cars in behind, so if he pits now, he's probably going to wind up in traffic, or at least have to overtake some cars that are deciding to pit at the normal time. So it's not looking good for Josh Jefferson. The opportunities just don't seem to be there, and it is a stark contrast from what we saw Jefferson putting it on pole, looking like he was strong coming into this race, whereas William Wolf barely sneaking in without getting to practice, qualifying 2 positions behind his rival, and then making a mistake in the opening laps. It is suddenly completely flip-flopped.
Yeah, it's remarkable how these races change, isn't it? And week 13 racing can always be a little bit weird for all those reasons. The fact that Wolf only just got into qualifying is quite extraordinary in itself as well. But it sort of balanced these two out quite nicely. The fact that Wolf made a mistake early on in this race, didn't drop down too far. The front four made a break for it very early in this race, and so could slot himself into what is now a 12-second gap. It was a multiple second gap even that early on in the race. And well, he's now back in front again after making a couple of overtakes, but not matching Casey McDonald at all. Nearly 3 seconds out in front for Casey McDonald, and that's a little bit surprising, I must say, based on the pace we've seen so far this season from these guys. This is Peter Yerkes' meatball. That's that rear right tyre no longer inflated or indeed attached properly.
Yeah, that makes it plainly obvious from that angle, that's for sure. So he's back into pit lane, getting that taken care of. Interesting that he did not take the spare car. That, or I guess he could be taking a tow, just because it was not safe enough to bring it back around without becoming a bit of a hazard. As we continue to watch William Wolf, he has not caught up to Casey McDonald. In fact, I think Casey has pulled away. No, it looks like it was 2/10 slower last lap, but it's still sitting at about 3 seconds difference between P1 and P2. I don't want to bring out the commentator's curse at this stage, but Casey McDonald is in a good position to finally get that win.
Yeah, absolutely. has been knocking on that door for a while, and this would be a great win if he can get there. But there's still nearly half the race remaining, and there's a lot that can happen here. Jeremy Mayne's still looking pretty quick as well, holding with Wolf, and Jeppesen has stopped the bleeding here. He is now 5 seconds off the lead, but not really any further off the championship leader, current championship leader Will Wolf, who's just overtaken Jeppesen, importantly for a championship. So yeah, this is far from over at the moment. Just have to wait and see when these guys come into the pit lane now, because that's going to be another crucial moment in this race.
Well, we've been watching, obviously, what is a very important story. It looks like we got a replay on Andrew Long as well. Let's see what's happened to him. Oh, no. And it's very easy to do that down at Oak Tree, although he has a massive hit there, and that is going to be severe damage on the car. No wonder he has come into pit lane. I want to give a shout out, though, to Marco Souza, quietly under the radar from second to last on the field in 23rd. He has climbed to 10th, so he's been having a phenomenal race.
Yeah, it's been a great drive through into the top 10 in recent times. Very impressive indeed to see him. Over half a minute off the race lead, but up into the top 10 is the most important thing. And as we suspected coming into these 2 weeks, VIR racing is going to be and has been so much about staying out of trouble. You will gain places just simply by doing that. These kind of things happen very often. That's Andy Lervold out of Oak Tree, trying his best, very hardest to get a good run out of Oak Tree, because it obviously matters for your front, for your back straight. But that's when it can go a little bit too far and you go off into the grass.
Unfortunately, the Porsche tractor has not been brought yet, so he'll have to try again later, as Mayne is now looking to maybe get that back from Wolf. Wolf defends, coming down into the horseshoe, forces him the long way around. That's tough to do on that double apexer, and indeed he has to give way. Mayne falls back to third once again.
Well, this is a bit of a nightmare for Wolf, because he's not quick enough to see off Mayne confidently at the moment. And yes, Mayne is never going to pose a threat on the outside of turn 1 through there, because nobody is. It's a very, very long way round there, unless you've properly got your nose in front, even really by the braking zone. And even then it can be difficult. But the fact that Wolf can't shake him is going to keep Jeppesen in the game, whether he's got the pace to be there or not. And that's going to be frustrating, but also meaningful in a sense of he's going to be right there ready to take a place off Wolf, if indeed Mayne gets past him as well.
I was curious how he got that close to him, and I went and checked. Wolf had a near spin coming out of the roller coaster down towards Hog Pen, so that's why he was right on his tail coming down the main straight. So he's obviously made up for it. Look at the gap that he's got now. But Jeppesen also responding. He's caught up to Jeremy Mayne, trying to see if he can take care of that. And as Marco Souza had an issue right after I just praised him, yes, he has. He goes off course. I'm going to guess this maybe loses just one position, as we saw a car. There it goes, the red machine overtaking.
Yeah, it's typical, isn't it? We're just seconds after we talk about him, talk him up, throws himself off the circuit down at turn 1. So that's probably our fault. But anyway, he's going to get that top 10 back again. Only a few seconds off Marco Souza at the moment, as Jeppesen homes into view for Jeremy Mayne now. Less than half a second behind, and Jeppesen's got a real decision to make here. Do I battle Mayne trying to get past him, or do I let him do his thing, try and overtake Wolf? Because he's showing decent speed, but it's difficult to put your trust in somebody else to help you win a championship like that.
And it's kind of interesting here that the gap is trending to widen between Wolf and McDonald. Of course, we know we had a little bit of a mistake earlier, but even that last lap was about half a second slower than Casey. So I kind of wonder if William Wolf is potentially struggling with those tires now. Did he use them up a little bit too much and abuse them?
Well, you did say at the start of the day that there have been reports last week in the two classes that time management may be more of a factor around here than either was expected or indeed compared to the rest of the tracks this season. It would fit on the timeline of where these guys' pace has gone. Wolf now 5 seconds off the lead. It wasn't so long that Jepperson was that far off, while hanging off the back in fourth. But this is starting to group up behind Will Wolf, who's going to be under pressure from Jeremy Main into the roller coaster.
Main's going to go to the right-hand side. That's going to be the outside into the kink, but the inside of the second part of the turn.
Oh!
Just a little bit of a slide. They may have ever so slightly touched, but they'll get away with it, and Wolf will stay ahead. Now Main has to watch out because Jepperson obviously has caught up a ton, and he's trying to get the launch coming out of Hogpen. All three of them onto the pitch straight once again as they start to speed up towards the horseshoe. It doesn't look like he's quite as close as he would have wanted to be, but boy, is it getting tense.
It certainly is. And another look from Main. Tentative look so far, and fair play to him through the roller coaster, because that's so easy to get wrong and could have got straight into the side of Wolf there, but he kept it controlled, and he also gave himself a decent chance on the run down the hill, but couldn't quite do it. Wolf defends well so far, but Main is certainly there and certainly putting the pressure on here, and Wolf all of a sudden is looking a bit like what Jefferson was earlier, in sort of a huge defensive posture for this position, but just the pressure just not going away.
Certainly making it fun for us because this is keeping the championship alive. For a moment, it looked like Wolf was going to start to dance away with this thing, but Josh Jepperson, no doubt, will be aware, seeing some of these moments up ahead. If he can just keep together, if he can maybe try to limit his own mistakes, he could find himself back ahead of the 16. For now, though, he's still separated by the 555 of Jeremy Main, and he's trying to pull him back in. This lap looks much better from William Wolf as he pulls it to about quarters of a second, over P3.
And again, Jefferson's got that difficult decision to make as he gets to the end of the roller coaster here. He's not going to manage it this time, but does he attack Main and hope that he can get to Wolf and pass him too, or does he place his trust in Jeremy Main here? This is so difficult as we enter the final third of this race and the final 20 minutes of this season, with still a pit stop to make for everybody as well, of course.
And I was kind of wondering if you would start to think about that pit stop, like you said, to see if maybe you could undercut your rival, even though it's not common in this series. But nobody able to do anything down into turn one, at least this time. 20 minutes left to go. For one last time here in the sport class, let's give a quick shout out to Princess Cruises, because they're the 2025 PCA title sponsor. As the official cruise vacation partner of Series 14, they provide exclusive offers, including world-leading itineraries across a fleet of 17 elegant ships, sailing to more than 330 global destinations. Reach out to the PCA Concierge team to book your next adventure today by calling 833-679-2188. Who is going to blink first amongst this group? I'm starting to see a couple cars in the back of the field pit now, which could open up more gaps. Tim Thornton, I believe, is among the first. The rookie deciding that it's worth maybe a slightly early pit stop, and he's got about 14 seconds on his. That is a decent time, albeit slightly slow compared to a few. Look for 12 to 14 seconds being the goal for most of the drivers.
And you cannot make any mistake on that here today. Absolutely not. Because it's going to cost you so dearly in this group, for example. And for these championship contenders as well. Even a second or two too long could be the difference in the title fight here. Wolf, though, just seems to have got it back together again here, just in the last couple of moments. Last couple of laps, he's alleviated the pressure that Jeremy Main was putting onto him. It was looking very dire for him at one stage, but now he's just got this under a little bit more control. Still 6 seconds up to Casey McDonald, but nevertheless, that's not important now. I feel these three can forget, maybe not Main, but certainly Wolf and Jepson can forget about winning the last race of the season. They're not going to win this championship with a win, I don't think. But they just have to beat one another, and that's their absolute priority here in this group.
There was a car off to the side, and that was...
Elson?
Elson, I believe. Yeah, that was Elson. So he gets it going once again. That actually puts him a lap down. We got two more pitters, Stanley and Corbett. Again, this is starting to open up gaps. Who's going to decide that it's worth their time to try and go contra to those around them and maybe get an advantage that way? It won't win you the race, as we heard Ewan mentioning, but it could maybe win you the championship. Or maybe if you're main, it'll get you away from the insanity of two title rivals that he's still separating. Oh, a mistake from Wolf. He goes off and he catches it. But now Jeppesen is in the catbird seat. He has the advantage and is back in a P3.
Wow. And so it changes for what? A third time? A fourth time in the last 45 minutes? The destination of this championship cannot decide where it wants to go. And Joshua Jeppesen is now in prime position again. And Wolf has to find the speed again that he showed earlier in the day to overcome adversity once. He's going to have to do it again if he wants to get past Jeppesen and win this title. I mentioned the run out of Oak Tree time and time again tonight and throughout these 2 weeks. It's so crucial. But he's just made a slight error there, Wolf. Pushing too hard. He's lost the rear and he's off into the grass. He's come into pit lane immediately, perhaps as a response. Jeremy Main's in there with him as well.
Interesting that Main also decides that now is the time to go. Jeppesen has the track to himself. No pressure except for what he puts on himself, really, to try and put in a good lap. Hits his marks, does William Wolf. So that's the good news for him. Let's see how long this one winds up being as the clock continues to tick upwards. Again, 12 to 14 seconds, and that is bang on 13 and a half.
That's a very nice stop from Wolf, actually, because Jeremy Mains was a bit longer, as you saw there, 14.9, perhaps a bit on the high end there. So, yeah, that's positive news for Will Wolf, absolutely. And he's going to have to hope that this is a good outlap and maybe a bad in-lap for Jeppesen, who now, contrary to what I said earlier, has got to go as long as he can, really. Use that lighter fuel for as long as possible, but it won't be too long because I'd imagine they're close to running out of fuel.
Yeah, I think most of the drivers, from what I recall, were in by about 12 minutes left to go. So, yeah, not expecting them to be able to go very far as we watch the 73 up towards the roller coaster. The good news for Main and Wolf is that they actually came in to a very big gap there in the traffic. So they have nobody to be concerned about now that they're back onto the circuit. Casey McDonald is in to our leader pits with a pretty healthy gap at this stage. Josh Jeppesen is going to follow. So that is the end of the pit window, it looks like.
Yep, we'll have to wait for some of the other back markers to come in, but you'd imagine these two have taken it as far as they can, and so everybody else is going to respond by coming in as well at the end of their lap here as McDonald stops in his marks quite nicely. He's just got to make sure he's got enough fuel in to get to the end here, and he'll be on his way to his first win of the season. Jeppesen unsighted as he gets past McDonald there into his box, a little bit slower. Now watch for this pit stop time, and remember that Wolf's was a 13.5. Jeppesen's gets up toward that now, past 10, as Wolf and Main come out the final corner. 12.2, very good stop from Joshua Jeppesen.
Wow, that could make a huge difference in this. Not only that, but they still have Main sitting between them. And yeah, he comes out ahead. So it looks like Josh Jeppesen has found himself 2 spots there in just a couple laps and now is into second place. Wolf, the gap up to Jeppesen looks to be, I believe, about 2 seconds.
He's got to get past the car as well, though, so it's going to be more than that in reality, unless Jeppesen starts to melt under the pressure again, like what we saw earlier on. Suddenly he's in a position to win the Sport Class Championship, something which I can't imagine he was even really dreaming of before this season. This is the class he's making his debut in, and so this has been quite an extraordinary season from him. And he's got Wolf bearing down on him as well. You'd say probably the better driver over the course of the season, but he's had 2 rounds where he was outside the top 5, or outside the top 3. Jeppesen's only had 1, and therefore has been taken on by his drop round, and it's been negated a little bit. But Wolf at the moment just doesn't look to have quite the speed that he had earlier on in the day.
A single win so far in the season, and as it stands right now, it might wind up being a single win and yet a championship. But consistency wins those championships. Josh is trying to prove that. While he has faltered from time to time here today, he is the one sitting in a better position with now about 12 minutes left to go as they come back onto the main straight once more. William Wolf has got the bit between his teeth. Let's see what the lap times look like. Actually, it looks like we won't get Josh Jepson's because he has just exited out of the pits. But William Wolf running a 1:49 flat.
He's got to get everything he can out of this car now for the next 12 minutes. He's really up against it. The odds are stacked right against him now. Even if he had the speed advantage over Jefferson like what he did earlier, just not sure he's got the time remaining in this race to catch that gap and make an overtake. But one positive for him, Jeremy Mayne is getting closer to Jefferson, and we know he's not scared of getting in amongst these championship contenders, and I do respect him for that, because you don't want to see everybody just staying out of the championship leader's way all the time in a championship finale. Otherwise, it sort of removes the point of them being there. Might as well race on their own, the two championship contenders. Mayne not scared to get in amongst it, and that is good news for Wolf.
Meanwhile, Bergson has had more issues coming out of the snake, finds the tire barriers there. It is embarrassingly easy sometimes to spin it through that portion as you try to weave through that set of S's. You have to say, though, that Josh Jepson's pit stop may have been a huge factor in this, too. I believe he was behind Mayne before the pit stop, wasn't he? So that got him the position with Jeremy being a little bit slower.
I believe that is correct.
Yeah, because it was about
yeah, it has to be, doesn't it? Because it has to be because they were separated by Mayne the other way around earlier, and so yeah. Mayne, meantime, makes a mistake. And look at Wolf down the hill. He's going to be aggressive now. Into the final corner. He's thrown Mayne off his line. He's got to do it now. He's cost himself the time. He's spent the time trying to get past Mayne. He's got to do it now, surely, because the gap's gone up to 2 seconds. He can't lose this time and not make the overtake as well.
Mayne's going to defend it. He's got the inside, the shorter line. He breaks just a little bit deeper, so he will be able to take that first apex away. And no, William Wolf doesn't quite have it yet, unless he wants to try something sneaky down in a NASCAR bend. But no, he cannot get there in time. Jefferson gets even more of a buffer now.
This is, or that was rather, very, very costly for Will Wolf. As I said, you've got to either spend the time getting past, i.e. losing the time to Jefferson and get past, or you've got to stick behind Mayne and trust him. In the end, he's slowed him down, he's slowed them both down, and they've lost more time to Jefferson. This is really odds stacked against Wolf now, and he's almost willing Jefferson to make mistakes here, but I still think there could be a mistake left in this race from Jefferson. His heart must be pounding at the moment. I think he's feeling the pressure, even though Wolf is not directly behind him.
And Mayne's only had a single podium for him this season. So this second podium could be a huge one, as he might wind up fourth in the championship. But I think just really the pride of being able to outrace two title rivals, or at least one of the title rivals, who has been so dominant all season long, will be a real feather in his cap. As they come back down roller coaster, this was where the mistake was last time. This time he looks a lot more sure-footed.
Yeah, a little bit of a wrong line there from Wolf, and it's really exaggerating the gap now to Jeremy Mayne as they go over the line with 8 minutes to go. I think 5 laps left as well at the end of that one. So even more time for Jefferson to control this group now and keep Mayne behind him ideally. He wants to keep that buffer right the way to the very end, alleviate the nerves, keep Mayne in there as a bit of a protective barrier there between yourself and your championship rival.
Jim Walsh with more problems. That's not a common barrier to hit, though, frankly, as he finds the right-hand side coming out of roller coaster. Car just got a little bit loose, it looked like, coming off the corner. But we continue to follow Wolf as he tries his best to get up to Jeremy Mayne. The clock keeps ticking away, and the time is running out. If it finishes as is, it's something like 1.5 seconds between Jeppesen and Wolf. And while they do have a car between them, it's kind of crazy to think that a championship could come down to just 1.5 seconds between what could have been a title for either car.
Yeah, exactly. It's just remarkable. And it's very rare, to be fair, that you see championship finales where both of the contenders start the race on the same amount of points, to making it literally impossible for there to be a tie, making the maths equation very, very simple. The question is just who finishes in front of the other in round 7 of our championship, and that is just the best scenario that we can have here, really. And it's delivered as well, you've got to say. Jeppesen starting this by getting the pole, Wolf immediately moving to second and then looking to make the move for the lead, but he made a mistake and dropped to 4th before making the overtakes to get back past Jeppesen and back into the lead, and then he made another mistake from out of Oak Tree. Jeppesen the only one out of the two who's not made a mistake, and it's just been a case of whether Wolf is in front or behind of him rather than the other way round. So it's been a remarkable championship finale of twists and turns, and there might be a few more in the last 4 laps.
It certainly is not over yet, and they both have to be on point for these final couple laps. We've seen Wolf make some mistakes. We've seen Jeppesen have a few here and there, but again, he seems to be quite consistent, just seems to not have the pace in comparison at most of the time. Granted, it seemed like William Wolf was struggling a little bit more with the tires in certain phases of this race, and maybe that's where Jeppesen is finding the consistency, just maybe respecting the rubber a little bit more over the course of it, even if he isn't as fast. It's certainly making life difficult for Jeremy Main, who's still stuck behind that 73. And let's not forget, in front of this all, you've got 8 seconds to get up to Casey McDonald, who is still on course to finally get that first win. He only has to make 5 more minutes to finally collect a trophy.
Oh dear, that's way too fast. Kevin Herman is going to find the wall. Oh no, slowed it down quite well, but did find the wall out through the roller coaster. Very, very easy to do that. Surprisingly, little moves through there between these guys. It's all been about mistakes so far. As Wolf gets close to Main again, less than 5 minutes for him to make 2 overtakes. The odds massively stacked against him, but they have been at times throughout this season, and he's delivered. So let's see what magic he can produce now in the last 3 laps.
It's getting a little bit closer this time, coming down into the horseshoe. Looks nice and strong through the double apex right-hander. Jeremy Main now finds only 2 car lengths between himself and the 73 as they come into NASCAR Bend. Seems like maybe another gear has been found by the number 16 at this phase. Is this where he can finally turn it around? Oh, he's coming off of the right-hander of turn 5 extremely well. And as we hop on board, unfortunately, this is once again a space where he can't do anything with it.
Yeah, he's too far back from here to be right alongside the S's, and he's way, way too far away at the moment. Jeppesen just doing enough to moderate these two and keep them at bay, but Wolf is pushing as hard as he has done all day, and that's what you can do when you're in 4th, to be fair. And where there is a bit of an advantage, he's off! Jeppesen, he gets into the grass, and that's the mistake that Wolf has been waiting for!
He has a front row seat to this fight now, is trying to get across the 73, wants to get to the racing line, but the 555 is pinching him. This is going to get interesting coming up into the braking zone. What can Jeppesen do? We saw it was his weakness before. It's his weakness again. Here comes Wolf round the outside. He's going to get to the inside as Main goes off as well. Both of them go by, but Wolf is back in a P2 with 3 minutes to go.
Can you believe this? Another twist in the final 3 minutes of this race. Jeppesen getting passed by Main, who eventually went absolutely miles off the circuit. Wolf follows him through. Jeppesen has not been strong into that roller coaster section time and time again, and this time he's been punished. He's down to 2nd with 2 laps to go in the season. He's down to 2nd in the championship. Just have a look at this, bumping and banging doors. I think he realised even at this point that this was going to be big trouble. The fact they're both going side by side means they're getting reeled in by Wolf anyway at this stage. But What great opportunism this is from Wolf to go round the outside like that, bang it down the inside, clean as you like, into the roller coaster. Extraordinary move. Has it just won him a title? It's not confirmed by any means. There's still a lap to go after this one.
Jeppesen struggled coming through the snake, though. Looks like he's lost some ground. He's going to have to hope, I think, for a mistake from Wolf, because Jeppesen is definitely not in a position to try and attack. They're going to get the white flag next time by. It was Yogi Berra that once said, "It ain't over till it's over." And that very much is true in racing. Until that checkered flag falls, you cannot count who is going to win this thing. Meanwhile, Case McDonald still cruising along without a care in the world to that championship battle. He is just focused on his own race.
Absolutely. He is out front by 8 seconds, would you believe it? He's not 8 seconds quicker, I don't think, than the rest of the field, but the fact he's been able to avoid all the trouble of the last 10, 15, 20 minutes or so means that he's a long way out in front. He's about to receive the white flag, and he's about to receive his first race victory of the season as well, you'd imagine, and with it a third place in the championship behind those two who are going to join him on the podium.
Yeah, Jeremy Main was his main concern, pun not intended, of trying to hold on to that third place. But now that Main has fallen off quite a bit, in fact, he's 14 seconds back with that mistake through the roller coaster. So that was quite costly for him. And Casey McDonald continuing to just take corner after corner now with one left to go, is about to finally get that win he's been looking for. William Wolf, though, is not out of the woods. There is the gap now. It looks like Jeppesen is cut back in by a tenth or two, but he needs more.
He does need more, and he needs a very good run out of Oak Tree as well. He's generally been getting those, and so he might have a chance, but it's the braking at the end of the back straight where it's been a real problem for him. But no point in doing anything other than throwing caution to the wind here and trying to get as close as possible to Wolf through this section. Tight through South Bend again, but he doesn't quite maximise the exit. He's got to be closer than this, and he's got to have an extraordinary run out of Oak Tree now.
He is a little bit tidier down to the apex, but what's the exit look like? It doesn't look great. And I think Wolf knows that he needs to try and break that slipstream. He goes to the inside as soon as he can. Jeppesen finally starting to regain with the slipstream, but it is just not enough. And by the time they get to the braking, I don't think he's going to be there as they finally get up to the roller coaster. As long as they are tidy, this is William Wolf's championship to lose. Meanwhile, in front of them both, Casey McDonald is finally going to win as he takes victory in the last race of Series 14 here at VIR. Meanwhile, behind, William Wolf, how has he done this? He comes back multiple times to take the championship unofficially, your title winner here in Series 14.
An unbelievable championship finale. The roller coaster of emotions for both Wolf and Jeppesen there must have been extraordinary. And what an extraordinary pass it was as well, by the way, from Wolf to actually get past Jeppesen at the end. With 3 laps to go, he looked down and out. There was a driver between the championship rivals, and then he had to make the overtake itself for second position. He did both of those in one go with 3 laps to go, coming to 2 to go, and with just minutes left in this season, takes the title in one of the more extraordinary championship finales you're likely to see.
This was the moment that made the difference. And there you go. You talked about how his corner exits were so good all race long. It was the one time that he failed to maximize it that cost him in the end, as Jeremy Main went side by side once again, just coming up a little bit too short on the braking and too timid into there. The 16 knew it was a chance, managed to get to the inside, and the other car going off was the icing on the cake as that cleared the way in front of him to really be able to run his own laps. And I said that it was going to be a matter of a second and a half that would decide the title. Try 0.3 of a second to decide who is champion today.
Yeah, that's one of the smaller gaps you're likely to see. That one position change, as you say, 0.3 apart, that would have changed the destination of the championship. But let's not forget about Casey McDonald, by the way, who has won a race for the first time this season here tonight.
So let's go through our finishing order, as Casey McDonald was your winner, and William Wolf came home second. Unofficially, your champion, Josh Jeppesen, finished in P3. Jeremy Main was fourth, as Nick Francis came home a bit of a quiet fifth. Sheldon Zaharachuk was P6, and Jeff Williams seventh, with Andrew Long in eighth. Tim Thornton finishing in ninth, and Daniel Corbett winding up in 10th. Meanwhile, it's Randy Lervold in 11th, while Stephen Danley was 12th, Mike Sachs in P13, and Jeffrey Gardner in 14th. Bruce Robinson, P15 for him today, as Alan Hales was in the 16th spot. Marco Souza slipped back down a little bit, but still gained a number of spots to P17. Kent Locklear, P18, and Andrew Elsom with a rough day there in 19th. Kevin Hamon likely the same in 20th. Jim Walsh, also a bit of a rough one in 21st, with Ankerberg Solon 22nd. Lee Binkley 2 laps down in 23rd, and Peter Yurtza a DNF today. And looks like, I believe, our winner is going to be having a bit of a chat with Ewan, as Casey McDonald finally gets his win.
Absolutely. Let's bring him in, the winner here tonight. Casey, congratulations on your win at VIR tonight. Tell us a little bit about how you were preparing and expecting to go tonight, because you seem to be pretty quick out there compared to those who are also at the front of the field. Just how expected or unexpected is this one tonight?
Well, I got to admit that with the extra week we had in between races, I put in some seat time, and that just paid off tremendously. And then there was one place on the track that I just knew that I was faster than everybody, and that was Snake. And I just took advantage of it because they had me on the last turn. But I was able to get a lot more time on Snake than they could on the last turn, so I just got lucky. I thought something happened when they were battling with each other too, that when they started falling off, but I don't know.
How pleased are you with this season overall? That's your 5th podium out of 7 now, and a 3rd place finish in the championship as well, confirmed with this win. So how pleased are you with that?
Oh, I'm ecstatic. This sport group turned out to be a lot more competitive than I thought it was going to be. I got to thank Last 10th coaching, because I would not be here without doing some extra work to get to this point. And PCA Sim and Princess Cruise for putting this on too.
Well, congrats on winning the race tonight, Casey, and thanks for coming to chat to us at the end as well. That's Casey McDonald, the winner here tonight at VIR.
And that's also going to take us to William Wolf, unofficially your champion and 2nd place tonight. Will, has the adrenaline subsided yet? Because my goodness, that it had our heart rates going.
Yeah, that race was that was really something. There, a ton of position changes, really some interesting moves all around. But wow, yeah, I was pretty worried for a minute.
Now, we'd gotten word that part of the reason you came in late on qualifying was because you were installing the latest build on iRacing. That leaves the question we've been wondering all night: how much practice did you actually get beforehand?
Yeah, I jumped right into quali cold. So that was something. That was a first.
So wait, no, you didn't have any practice prior in the week up to this?
During the week, yeah, I had some practice during the week, but I wasn't ready to race until 9 p.m.
Okay, that's what we were wondering on that one, how much you had actually gotten some experience out there. But let's talk about that last move that made it happen. You knew that you had to finish ahead of him. You saw him make a mistake. What's going through your mind as you're approaching roller coaster?
Yeah, the theory for the whole race was, don't take risk until the end. The opportunity presented itself on that last turn, second to last lap, and so I said, now's the time to go for it.
And that gets you another podium in what has been somewhat of a dominant season, having taken 4 wins out of 7 races. What do you do from here? How do you feel about being able to take home a crown?
Well, just onwards to next season.
Very pragmatic. Congratulations, and feel free to thank anybody that helped make this title possible.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. I couldn't do it without Nikki Chan and Last Tenth. He's amazing. All of the sponsors, Princess Cruises, just a really great series all around.
Thank you very much. That was Will Wolf, unofficially your champion and finishing second in the last race of Series 14. Now, I believe on the other side of the coin, Ewan has caught up with Josh Jeppesen.
Josh, welcome in. Commiserations on a great season in season 14, but just coming up short in the very last laps there. Tell us how you're feeling at the end of that race tonight.
I mean, I'm happy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with second place. I was happy to get a 0x. I guess I was shooting a race as clean as possible race as I could. Yeah, I mean, there's just some ups and downs. He made a mistake early on, and then I made a mistake, and he got me back. So that's the way it ended.
Just tell us about that lap where you ended up losing second place there, because it wasn't initially Will who was alongside you. Of course, Jeremy Main was right behind you, and you were side by side with him down the back straight. And just talk us through that whole sequence there on that lap.
I just didn't want to get crashed out. It's pretty much as simple as that.
And when you look back and reflect, I mean, it sounds like you're still going to be pretty pleased with second place in the championship. Just how are you going to reflect on this sport class season?
It was just a stepping stone to the next spot.
Well, we look forward to seeing you in that next spot. Well, congrats on a great season, nevertheless, Josh, and thanks for coming to chat to us at the end as well.
Yep, thanks a lot. Have a good night.
Thanks very much. That is Joshua Jeppesen. Sense a little bit disappointed with second place this season, but what a great season it was from him. To come within 3/10 of a championship is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I think he should be proud of what he was able to achieve so far, and we'll see what he can do in the future, because it ain't over after this one. In the meantime, we do want to point out that we have one more race in Series 14, and that is going to be tomorrow night, December 11th, with the Challenge class. A big thank you goes to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as our team tonight, Ramiro and Ewan. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Peak, and until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.